My name is Rosalind Marraquin. I was 38 years old when my father decided my daughter and I were taking up too much space. He said it in my backyard. He didn't knock. He didn't call first. He didn't ask how work was going or whether I'd finally slept through the night or how my daughter's third-grade teacher conference had gone. He stood on the edge of my patio like a man inspecting a property he already believed belonged to him, a realtor beside him with a clipboard and measuring tape hanging from her wrist. My older sister Teresa hovered near the sliding glass doors, her twin boys wobbling in wide, careless loops on their balance bikes. Their tires rolled straight through the chalk drawings my daughter had spent all morning making on the patio stones. Dad pointed toward the swing set. "Stop being selfish," he said loud and flat. "Your sister's twins need a bigger yard." The realtor nodded, already jotting something down, as if that sentence belonged on an official form. "We're listing it next week," Dad continued. "You'll stay in the garage apartment." My brother-in-law Kevin laughed. Not awkwardly, not nervously. He laughed like a man hearing good news. "Finally," he said, scanning the yard like he was mentally rearranging it. "A real house, for real family." I smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, just enough to keep the moment from exploding. "Got it," I said. That smile was muscle memory. It was survival. My daughter Eliza stood on the back step, clutching a paper snowflake she'd carefully cut out for the kitchen window. Her fingers were still dotted with dried glue. She didn't cry. That was what broke me. Instead, she folded the snowflake slowly in half and pressed it against her chest, like she was trying to make it smaller, like she was the thing that took up too much room. My throat tightened. My hands went cold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them to get out of my yard, out of my life, out of my child's sense of safety. But my family had trained me early to be the calm one, the fixer, the daughter who didn't make scenes. So I did what had always kept me safe. I smiled again, thinner this time. Dad looked satisfied, like he'd just closed a deal. Kevin smirked. The realtor glanced up. "So, Thursday for photos?" Dad answered, without looking at me. "Thursday works." Eliza glanced up at me then, quick and careful, like a bird checking the sky for danger. I squeezed her shoulder gently. "Go get your shoes, Ellie," I said softly. She nodded and went inside without a sound. My father watched her go and didn't flinch. That was the injustice, standing in plain daylight. My child quietly being erased, while grown adults planned her displacement like it was a storage problem. I worked as an engineer. Long hours, steady pay, the kind of job people assumed meant you were fine. I was also a widow. 2 years earlier, my husband had died in a car accident on a rainy highway. No dramatic goodbye, no warning, just gone. After that, Eliza and I were all each other had. She was adopted, something my parents liked to forget. They never said it outright, but they treated her like she was temporary. Family photos where she was asked to take the picture. Birthday parties where she got a generic card while the twins tore through layers of wrapping paper. My mother called her that sweet little girl, not her name. My father liked to say things like, "She's lucky you took her in," like Eliza had been a stray. And the worst part was that I kept showing up anyway, because I was also the family wallet. That started long before Eliza. When I got my first real promotion, Dad needed help with property taxes. When Teresa got married, my parents needed help covering the venue deposit. When Teresa decided she wanted kids, suddenly there were fertility appointments they couldn't finance. I didn't call it exploitation. I called it responsibility. A few hundred here, a few thousand there. A temporary loan that never came back. A credit card I paid off because it was hurting Dad's score. A contractor deposit I covered for now. By that summer, I finally did the math one night and realized I'd funneled more than $20,000 into my parents' and sisters' lives in less than a year. And through all of it, my daughter was treated like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. So, when my father stood in my backyard with a realtor and told me I'd be sleeping above the garage like a teenager who'd messed up, it wasn't random. It was the end of a long pattern. There was something else that made the scene uglier. This house wasn't just any house. It was my grandmother's, Ruth's. She was the only one who ever looked at Eliza like she fully belonged. She learned her favorite cereal. She kept extra markers just for her. She taped Eliza's drawings to the fridge like they mattered. 2 years earlier, Grandma Ruth had moved into assisted living after a bad fall. Dad had swooped in with paperwork and authority, power of attorney, all under the banner of helping. He convinced her to let me and Eliza live here temporarily because he didn't want strangers renting it. I paid the bills. I fixed the roof leak. I replaced the water heater. I kept the garden alive because Grandma loved it. Dad still called it the family house, which really meant their house. That afternoon, Teresa's twins rode straight through Eliza's chalk drawings. One glanced back and said, "Oops," like it was funny. Kevin shrugged. "We'll redo all this anyway." Eliza's drawing was a tiny city. Roads, stop signs, stick figures holding hands. She'd drawn one tall figure and one small one, and labelled them me and Mum. The bike tyres smeared the word Mum into a grey streak. Eliza didn't say a word. She picked up her chalk snowflake and set it on the kitchen counter like she didn't know where to put herself. I should have known then that if I didn't stop this, I'd spend the rest of my life watching my child learn that love was conditional and space was something you had to earn. That night, after they left, I did exactly what I said I would. I started packing quietly, carefully. I pulled boxes out of the garage apartment. The one Dad was so eager to assign me like a punishment. I filled one with Eliza's books, one with kitchen items, one with her framed school photo. Eliza sat on the rug with her stuffed rabbit, watching me tape boxes shut. Finally, very softly, she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" That sentence felt like someone pressing a thumb into a bruise. "No," I told her. "You didn't. Are we getting kicked out?" I didn't lie. "We're not staying where we're not wanted." She nodded, like she understood, more than an 8-year-old should. Then she went to her room and started packing a backpack. She already knew how to leave. Around 10:40 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. "Don't leave. Check the basement, Grandma." My heart started pounding too loud for the quiet house. Grandma didn't text, and whatever was wasting downstairs was about to change everything. For a full 30 seconds, I just stared at my phone. The screen went dark, then lit up again, as if it were breathing with me. Unknown number. No typos. No emojis. Just 3 short lines that made my pulse thud in my ears. Grandma didn't text. She hated phones. She said buttons were too small, and messages felt like whispering through walls. If she needed me, she called. Or she waited until I visited, and said things slowly, deliberately, like she wanted them to land. This felt urgent. This felt hidden. I set the phone face down on the counter and listened to the house. It was too quiet. The kind of quiet that made every sound inside your head feel louder. From down the hall, I could hear Eliza's dresser drawer opening and closing softly. She was packing without being told what to take. That realization made my stomach twist. I walked to her doorway. She was sitting on the floor, folding t-shirts with careful precision, lining them up in her open backpack. Her stuffed rabbit sat beside her, like a silent assistant. "Hey, Ellie," I said gently. She looked up. Her eyes were too calm. "Can you stay in your room for a minute?" I asked. "I need to check something downstairs." She nodded, without asking what. That scared me more than if she'd protested. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, the heavy one Dad insisted stay there just in case, and headed for the basement door. It stuck like it always did. The old wood creaked as I pulled it open, the sound sharp in the stillness. I descended slowly, each step complaining under my weight. The basement smelled like concrete and dust and old paint, a place meant to store things, not secrets. The freezer hummed in the corner. It wasn't even in use. Dad insisted it stay plugged in. Said it was good to have options. I'd always thought that was strange, but not strange enough to question. Now my gaze locked on it like it was alive. I moved toward the back wall and froze. The paint behind the freezer was a slightly different shade. Not obvious, not unless you were looking for it. My heart started racing. I crouched, ran my hand along the baseboard, and felt it. An uneven seam. A panel. My fingers slipped into the gap and pulled. It came away easily. Too easily. Behind it was a narrow cavity between the studs. My breath caught as I reached inside and touched cold metal, a lockbox and a thick envelope wrapped in plastic. My hands were shaking when I pulled them out. The envelope had my name written across the front in careful cursive. Rosalind. Not to the family. Not for my son. Just me. I carried everything upstairs like it might break. I set it on the kitchen table and sat down without opening anything. I needed a moment to breathe, to remind myself that this was real. Then I broke the seal. The letter was on top. Grandma Ruth didn't waste words. Rosalind, if you're reading this, your father has tried to take the house from you. I'm sorry. I told him no. He didn't listen. My chest tightened. This home is not a prize for whoever yells the loudest. It's yours. You kept it alive. You kept me alive. You kept that little girl alive when no one else bothered to learn her heart. Tears blurred the page, but I kept reading. I changed the trust. I recorded it. Your father is no longer the trustee. You are... He will try to rush you. He will try to scare you. Don't let him. Call the attorney inside. And Rosalind, check the lockbox. You deserve to know what he's been doing with my money. Love, Grandma Ruth. I read it twice, then a third time. My hands shook as I opened the folder beneath the letter. Documents slid out. Legal, official, stamped. A trust amendment naming me as trustee. A recorded deed transfer already filed. Already official. My father had stood in my backyard with a realtor while having no legal right to sell the house. But the lockbox was worse. I opened it with the small key taped inside the envelope. Inside were bank statements and handwritten notes, withdrawals that didn't match Grandma's care costs, checks made out to cash, transfers to my father, transfers to Teresa. Beside one entry Grandma had written in the margin, asked him what this was for. He lied. My mouth went dry. This wasn't just greed. This was theft. This was draining an elderly woman while she sat in assisted living, trusting her son to protect her. Suddenly, everything clicked. The urgency, the backyard ambush, the way Dad had already planned my displacement. They weren't just entitled. They were desperate. They needed the house sale to cover what they'd taken. I went down the hall and checked on Eliza. She was asleep on top of her blanket, her backpack still open beside her bed like she'd fallen asleep mid-escape. Her stuffed rabbit was tucked under her chin. Something settled in my chest. Not rage, clarity. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to draw one clean boundary that didn't need permission. The next morning, at 8:12 a.m., I made coffee and called the attorney Grandma listed. He answered on the second ring. Your grandmother told me this call might come, he said. After I confirmed my name, I told him about the realtor. His voice went flat. He has no authority. You do. We sent notice that day. Then I called the bank. I stopped automatic transfers, removed linked accounts, changed passwords. One by one, confirmation emails rolled in. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt lighter. Eliza padded into the kitchen and froze when she saw the boxes. I knelt in front of her. We're not moving today. Her eyes widened. So, my room is still my room. Yes, I said. She smiled carefully, like the smile might disappear if she made it too big. The fallout started fast. Calls, voicemails, a text from Dad. Why aren't the transfers going through? I replied once. I'm not funding a family that treats my child like she doesn't matter. At 2:15 p.m., they showed up. No warning. Dad marched up the steps. Teresa and Kevin followed. You came to your senses, Dad said, seeing the boxes. You can't list this house, I said calmly. Watch me. I held up the folder. Grandma changed the trust. I'm the trustee. The house isn't for sale. Their faces shifted. Dad denied it. Teresa whispered. She wouldn't. She did, I said. Kevin muttered. Real family needs space. That's when Eliza appeared behind me, barefoot, rabbit in hand. Kevin smiled at her. Looks like you'll have a cool little apartment soon. My father still didn't look at her. I stepped back and closed the door. I locked it. Eliza tugged my shirt. Are they mad? Yes, I said. Are we okay? I looked at her and told the truth. We are okay. Outside, they yelled. Inside, for the first time, in a long time, we were safe. Stop. I stayed with my back against the door, long after their voices faded. Not because I was scared they'd break in, but because I needed to feel the weight of that decision settle into my bones. For the first time in my life, I hadn't explained myself. I hadn't softened the blow. I hadn't negotiated my own boundaries into something easier for them to swallow. I'd simply said no. Eliza stood beside me, her rabbit tucked under one arm. the other hand gripping my shirt like an anchor. Her body was tense, but her eyes were steady. She was watching me, not the door. That mattered. "They're gone," I said after a moment. She nodded. "Okay." That was it. No tears, no questions, just acceptance. Like some part of her had already learned that adults could be loud and wrong at the same time. The rest of that afternoon passed in a strange quiet. Not peaceful exactly, more like the silence after a storm, when everything feels fragile, but intact. I put the folder back in the kitchen drawer. I moved the boxes into the spare room instead of the garage apartment. Eliza helped, carefully stacking her books back onto the shelf, as if she were reclaiming territory. My phone kept lighting up. I didn't answer. That night, after Eliza fell asleep, I listened to the voicemails. My mother cried in the first one, said she didn't understand how things had gone so far, said family shouldn't treat each other like strangers. My sister left 2 messages, one angry, one trembling, both carefully avoiding my daughter's name. Dad left the last voicemail. "You've humiliated me," he said. "You think you're protecting that child, but you're tearing this family apart. You'll regret this. I saved it. Not for revenge, for documentation." The next few days were a blur of emails and paperwork. The attorney confirmed the trust amendment and sent formal notice, revoking Dad's authority. The bank flagged the withdrawals for review. Grandma's assisted living facility updated their records, listing me as the sole decision-maker. Dad showed up there 2 days later, trying to charm the staff. He didn't expect Grandma to be sitting in the common room when he walked in. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later. She looked right at him, the nurse told me gently, and she said, "I know what you did," loud enough for everyone to hear. He didn't argue. He left. Teresa came after that, crying, trying to hug Grandma. Grandma didn't move. "You wanted the house," she told her. "You didn't want the people in it." Kevin never showed. When the money stopped, everything collapsed faster than I expected. Teresa called, saying they might lose their rental. She didn't apologize to Eliza. She just said, "You have to help." "I don't," I said. She accused me of letting her kids suffer. "I'm not your backup bank," I replied, and hung up. Dad tried showing up at my job. Security walked him out. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. Something shifted in Eliza over the next few weeks. Subtle at first. She stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. She taped her drawings back on the fridge without asking. One afternoon, she asked if she could repaint the birdhouse in the backyard. We painted it together. Purple roof, yellow sides, a crooked heart. "This one stays," she said, pressing dirt around the base of a newly planted maple tree. That spring. "Yes," I told her. "It stays." By Christmas, there were no invitations, no apologies, just silence. And the silence was a gift. We decorated our own entree. Grandma came over steady on her walker, smiling more than I'd seen in years. On Christmas morning, Eliza opened a sketchbook and markers, like they were treasure. She drew our house, our yard, the maple tree, 3 stick figures holding hands. Me, Mum, Grandma, Ruth. She taped it to the fridge herself. No asking, no fear. That was the closure. Not winning, not revenge. Just my child standing in her own home, knowing she didn't have to earn her place or pack a bag in the middle of the night ever.